Welcome to Hillside Farm. My name is Ruth McKinney, and today in our fall series, we're talking with my oldest and dearest friend, Heather. And so many people have asked us over the years about our friendship and how not only we began it, but how we've grown it and how we've maintained it. And since Heather is in a number of my episodes of cooking, we thought it would be good to have an actual episode of us kind of sharing about who we are, how we met, struggles we've had, and about friendship, because I think particularly in this day and age, we're becoming increasingly, relationships are becoming increasingly, what's the word I'm looking
difficult.
for? Not only difficult, but superficial. I think that's the word I'm looking for. Everybody's on social media and they think they have all these friends, but where are true friendships? And my daughter, who just started college down in Virginia, she's like, Mom, everyone's on all these posts with all these new friends, and they're not really friends. So we thought it was a timely conversation to have, not only for women our age, but for even younger women. So welcome, Heather. That was my long introduction. So we're sitting outside in the ruins where we often sit, and we just thought it would be fun. Yeah. So why don't you start with telling how we met?
We met.
I might interrupt you a couple of times.
No, we'll tag team it. We usually do this. Okay. We've told the story a lot of times. So we met
25 years ago.
Yeah, I think it was like 2001.
Mm-hmm.
We met in 2001 in the fall. We were in Bible study together. I had just my first son at that point, and you just had Alex. So Alex is a little bit older than Dylan. So Dylan was probably like 5 months old.
Well, and Alex was still in a carrier.
Yes, yeah. So we were in Bible study, and somehow the subject came up of anniversaries. And
I think it was in November.
Yep.
And you might have mentioned.
I said, my anniversary's coming up. My husband and I are having to celebrate an anniversary. And she's like, oh, so are we. My husband and I have a November anniversary too. And I'm like, when's yours? And it was the same day as ours, November 28th. And I'm like, what year? 1998. And we're like, that's really weird.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, where'd you go on your honeymoon? St. Lucia.
St. Lucia.
So did we. And then I'm like, wait a minute. And as we kept talking.
Well, I think the next thing was, where did your husband go to college?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And we both said Virginia Tech at the same time.
So at that point, we said, at this point, all the women around the table are like, okay, you guys are having your own conversation.
By ourselves.
And like, we said, all right, let's get together and have lunch after class.
But we continued that conversation because my grandfather he and Billy Graham, my grandfather was an evangelist all over the world. And so he and Billy Graham had been in a Bible study together for years. Well, Heather's dad was kind of the opener for Billy.
He was head of Billy Graham, North American Billy Graham Crusades for 20 years. And so I traveled all around the world with Billy Graham growing up. And then my cousins taught at the Morrison Academy in Taiwan with her family. Yep.
And then as we were talking, even with my dad grew up in Hong Kong.
Yep.
And my dad's very best friend in Hong Kong, she used to babysit their kids when they moved back to the States.
Yeah.
So there were all these moments in time, right? You know, you often hear that statement, someday God will show you behind the quilt.
Yeah.
Like all those intersecting points that he used to make something very beautiful on the other side. And I think that's how we felt like, okay, at this point in time, you two were supposed to meet.
We always said we were on parallel paths, and then the intersection was time.
Yeah.
And it was time at that exact moment in space for us to meet each other. And I like how you talked about, you've talked about how your mom used to pray for a friendship, a deep friendship for you.
Well, she and I both grew up moving all the time. Yeah. I'm almost moved yearly my whole life. She did move yearly, but hers was transcontinental. Mine was within the United States. And so friendships were hard to grow because you were constantly moving.
We both make friends very easily.
Right.
I think what we realized is putting down roots and having established friendships over time takes work.
Takes work.
Yeah.
And my mom used to pray that the Lord would bring me, I remember I used to watch, Anne of Green Gables, that the Lord would bring me that soulmate.
A bosom friend.
A kindred spirit. So anyway, we meet, and it was a fast and furious friendship. We had all of our kids, my 5, her 4, over a course of years. We taught Bible studies together. We used to, for 24 years now, we've met weekly, praying for our family and kids. So we've kept journals on it. So we've actually written down where our kids are at, where our marriages are at, what are different hopes and dreams each one have had over the years. And what we've learned, I think, because people can talk about seasonal friendships, they come and go, and friendships, we've learned, also takes work. And we can give some examples of that. We have, in some ways we're very similar, in some ways we're different. And we've recently had to really work through the differences, because sometimes they're highlighted, right? And we had, it's very easy when things are going fun. You're just entertaining together, you're throwing parties together, which we became very good at doing. But then we became paddle partners, which is kind of like tennis. And after a few years, we learned there is even another difference between us, and that has to do with how you approach competition. I know this all sounds silly, but the point is not the issue, but how we had to kind of navigate it and work it out.
Yeah, we realized what was best for our friendship was actually we needed to have some hard conversations with each other.
Right.
And I think that's hard to do. And a lot of people at that point give up on friendships and say, well, it was good while it lasted. And I think we both knew we were in a difficult place that we needed to push through and work it out so that we would get to the other side stronger.
Right.
And we've had a really good friend who's met with us actually recently in the last year. And she's a professional counselor, and she's a mentor of both of ours. And she's really encouraged us to have some of those hard conversations and to ask each other what our needs are.
Okay, this is kind of funny. So when we started this, our friend Cindy, it's been incredible and it's so timely, but she initially approached us and several other women, because she's kind of doing that leadership training, coaching. For some of them are C-suite women, some are, stay-at-home moms. It just doesn't matter what space you are in life. So we started this thing this year. And one of her initial conversations with us had to do with what your needs are in relationships. And it's this pyramid she showed us, right?
Yeah.
Where it goes like this. And
the hierarchy of needs, or the levels of intimacy. Levels of intimacy.
Okay, and the most intimate is you're sharing your needs. Well, both of us started laughing. Actually, when I saw it, I was like, oh, that doesn't apply to me. I'm not needy, and I don't have needs. I mean, my husband would say he laughs because he loves that I'm not needy. And
we're both fairly
I'm not high
independent.
maintenance.
We're both fairly independent.
Right.
We get stuff done.
But I think we were misinterpreting what needs meant.
Yes.
And this time and conversations between us had to go really deep. Like, why were we hurt?
Right.
What did that actually reveal in us individually? What were my needs as a friend, and how were they not being met, and vice versa?
Yeah.
And I don't know, it was really cool. We had, Cindy made us actually verbalize not just these, she called them press releases, where we're like, you did this, or I got hurt by this, but she actually made us
go
deeper. And I don't think women anymore are willing to do that, even in their own marriages. I'm not just talking about friendship. Sometimes we laugh because I take our friendship very seriously, and so does she. And I think if more marriages, if people were willing to be vulnerable and authentic with who they're married to, a lot of these things.
That's the word I was going to use, is vulnerable. I feel like, and we believe that the Lord has given us a gift of our friendship and desires for us to be more vulnerable with each other, with others. I think that's a real key, is to be willing to admit where you've blown it, and if you've messed up, and to ask for forgiveness and to seek it out. A lot of times people will hurt each other and then they'll just turn away and say, I'm done. I'm not, she's not worth it.
Or they hurt each other and just say, I'm going to overlook it. But what they aren't realizing is that it's also building. And so if we could give advice to people, it would be to ask forgiveness. It would be to give forgiveness. It would be to be willing to go the distance with a friendship if you really want them to go to a different level and to be lifelong.
Be willing to knock down the door.
Yeah, so she says that because when I get hurt or something's going on, I literally go dark. I call it going dark. Like, I just build that nice wall. This particular occasion was probably 15 years ago.
That was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago, and I think I had gotten hurt feelings, and I wasn't answering my phone, so she literally came over.
Literally opened up her door, found her down in the basement crying.
And she was
and
like,
I'm like,
you will talk to me.
why aren't you calling me back?
So you have to be willing to do that.
Yeah.
And because that truly is the test of whether you love somebody. And and it's more than common shared values. It's more than common shared experiences. It's almost this agreement that this is what we want, and supporting our families. So our husbands are huge supporters of our friendship, and it's just been really
that
amazing.
has really been a gift, is that our husbands value, when I say to my husband, so I'm going over to the Roots to pray, he's like, okay, here's my list.
That is very true.
And that's a wonderful thing.
That is very true. And those things have happened, whether it was her, in a car that she was thinking of, or me, and we used to pray over homes that we were going to live in. In fact, the property we are on right now, Heather and her husband had looked at first, and they had looked at it for an investment.
Yeah.
And she called me, well, I was watching your kids.
You were. But I knew it was for you.
You knew. And she pulled into
you.
my driveway, and she gets out of her car, and she's just crying. And I'm like, are you okay? And she said, no, we just saw this property. I believe it's for you and Bob. And I said, we can't afford that. And she said, I'm telling you, you're supposed to look at it, but there's one problem. My husband wants it. So I think we were in a Bible study that night, and you called us around midnight.
And he said,
and
no,
he had said,
it's for Bob and Ruth.
It's for Bob and Ruth. I mean, the amount of work it needed was insane. And so she said, I'm going to watch your kids in the morning. And I was like, no, we can't afford it. Well, she watched our kids in the morning. We came, and here we are.
Yeah, I knew it.
So,
well, don't forget, you also...
Yeah, we prayed over a lot of houses. And I'm going to give one little other example. She had told me about this pink house that she and her husband were looking at. Yeah. And we had prayed about it. I don't listen sometimes. I didn't know where this pink house was. And my kids were in Junior Olympics at the time for swimming. And we were driving home from the Junior Olympics to go get chicken feed for our chickens. And I was having a conversation with my kids turning around.
Let's be clear. They were fighting in the back, and
they
you
were fighting
yelling
in
at
the
them
back.
to sit down or something.
And her road does this.
It's on a curve as you go down a hill.
Well, I took it straight on, and I took out, and it was kind of at dusk. Well, it was at nighttime, so I didn't see what I was taking out, but I could hear bam, 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 bam. And like half of this big branch is sticking out of the side of my car. And we don't need to go into what I did after. But my husband comes back with me, and we couldn't find, because I was like, I don't know what I did. So we went.
You had hit a mailbox.
We had hit multiple mailboxes that were like cemented, not your tiny little mailboxes, and all these bushes. So I found the house. It was pink. I go up to try to find the owner. No one's home.
And there's a for sale sign in the
for
front.
Sale
so you're
sign,
like, wait a minute.
And it had a guest house that was pink too. So I went back the next day, and this older gentleman, probably in his 80s, we had a wheelbarrow, and he's picking up all my damage. And I pulled in, and I said, sir, is this your house? And he said, yes. And I said, I'm the one that hit everything. I tried to find you last night, and please forgive me. And I said, we'll pay for everything. Well, it ended up being the house I've been praying for with Heather. So she got new mailboxes, new bushes.
I know. So our current mailbox, we've lived there for 11 years now. And every time I'm like, Ruth and Bob bought these mailboxes.
Ruth and Bob bought these mailboxes. So anyway, our encouragement, if you had one last piece of encouragement for people.
I think for us, we believe our friendship foundation started with prayer. It started with us being consistent, meeting together, making that a priority. Even when we didn't feel like it sometimes, we would have to be like, hey, we haven't prayed in a while. We need to get together this week.
Right.
And making sure that we did that. And I think we also have fun. I mean,
we have a lot of fun.
We love to shop, and we love to go.
We love to throw parties.
Yeah, I mean, so we do.
And our relationships
too.
too. We have several different groups of friends that we would pull in for different things.
Yeah.
And again, I would say being willing to be vulnerable to the other person, because hurting is always going to happen, and offense is always going to happen, and the willingness to ask for forgiveness and to forgive.
And I would say also celebrating each other's successes and being like, happy for each other to do certain things. And, you have groups of friends that I don't have groups of friends with, and vice versa. And I think that's healthy, that we both celebrate and are confident with our own relationship, that we're not bothered by others. So,
because I think that happened when I started Hungry for Home. It's like all these different people began to help me and encourage me and support me
Yeah.
that Heather didn't know. And that can cause issues too, or when she became a realtor, or, there are different things that she's done. So yeah, I don't think women do that very well. I don't think we lift each other up and encourage and support and celebrate each other.
Yeah.
So
Lose the jealousy, lose the competition.
lose the insecurities, and be willing to be each other's
Advocate.
very biggest advocate. So I hope this helps, and you can always look at more tips on Tip Tuesday on Instagram on Hungry for Home, where we do weekly tips. But I hope this helps, and I pray for each of your friendships and relationships, even spouses, as you continue to try to integrate some of these things. Have a great day.